What did I do? What kind of man was I? And then something else began to creep in, fear. Not the kind of fear I had as a child, but something deeper, something colder. I was 93 years old when I ended up in the hospital with pneumonia. The doctors did not think I would make it. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid to die. Not afraid of pain, not afraid of suffering, afraid of what comes next. I spent my whole life saying there was nothing after death, but lying in that hospital bed, I was not so sure anymore. What if I was wrong? What if there was a God? What if there was a judgment? And what would he say to a man who spent his whole life turning people away from him? I tried to push those thoughts away. I told myself I was just weak, just scared, just confused from the medication. But they would not leave me. One night, a nurse came into my room. She was a young woman, maybe 30 years old, with kind eyes and a quiet voice. She adjusted my IV, checked my monitors, and then she did something no one had ever done for me before. She bowed her head and she prayed. She prayed quietly, almost in a whisper, but I heard her say my name. Lord, I lift up Walter to you. I do not know his story, but you do. Please let him feel your presence tonight. Please let him know that it is not too late. She did not know who I was. She did not know what I had done. She just prayed, and I lay there in the dark after she left, and I wept. I wept for the first time in decades. That prayer shook me more than any debate ever did. I recovered from the pneumonia, but I was not the same. Something had cracked inside me. For the next few years, I started to watch things online. Testimonies, stories of people who had come to faith. At first, I watched them to mock them. I would sit in my living room and talk back to the screen. Ridiculous, delusional. How can anyone believe this nonsense? But the more I watched, the more something stirred in me. These people had something I did not have. Peace, joy, hope. They had faced death and suffering and loss, and they were not afraid. One night, about a year ago, I was watching a testimony of a man who had been a criminal, a violent man, a man who had hurt many people. And he was standing in church, weeping, talking about how Jesus had forgiven him, how Jesus had washed him clean, how Jesus had given him a new life. And I found myself saying out loud, but you do not know what I have done. And then I said something I had never said before. I said, God, if you are real, why would you ever want a man like me? It was not a prayer. It was barely a whisper, but it was the most honest thing I had said in 90 years. That night, I had a dream, at least I think it was a dream. It felt more real than anything I have ever experienced.